We're live. Welcome back to the program. It is Blurting Wild Dad. On today's episode, we're going to talk about we're back again with another episode of Vince Gotta Chill. And we're just going to talk about some misadventures I've had with supporting the things that my kids are interested in. So, most is going to be dominated by wrestling talk. So, if that's not something that engages you, sorry for you. But that's what I got on today's episode. We're going to jump right into it. I'm going to roll the credits and we will get things started. Peace. Blurting Wild Dad, we're back. So, um, today's episode, I've done a piece that a list. It started out as something I wrote. It was a return to writing and blogging after I hadn't done it for a while. It was called Vince Gotta Chill, and I saw an episode. And I've been a professional wrestling fan pretty much all my life. I saw an episode of Raw that was relatively recent that the best word I can describe is kind of broke something inside me where I just couldn't take it anymore. There's a suspension of disbelief when you're a wrestling fan, um, where you're like, okay, this is kind of silly. There are parts of it where you're like, okay, I can forget the silliness and kind of focus on what's happening in the ring and watch some of the athletic stuff that's going on in the ring and the back and forth, the simulated fighting and whatnot. And then there's this there's this wall that you kind of hit where it's just a wall of silly shit, and I had it. Like, it had gone as far as I could take it, and I think it kind of came down with I'm watching, and Shane McMahon shows up on my TV screen and announces Raw Underground, and immediately they go to Raw Underground, and there's a bunch of wrestlers standing around a fight pit, and they're pretending to have basically it's just another iteration of what's supposed to happen in the ring, except this time it's real, as opposed to the other part of the show, which I guess they're saying isn't, which completely blows up the suspension of disbelief. But nobody thought about it that far, and I think they were really just kind of scrambling for ideas. And you read some of the backstage stuff, and they were talking about how they're hemorrhaging ratings, even though they're pulling in good numbers compared to what other shows are doing, compared to them and what they're doing, their numbers aren't that impressive. I'll repeat that. WWE pulls in great ratings for what other shows are doing on network television. Make no mistake about that. They're pulling in fantastic ratings for what other shows are doing, and it's consistent, ongoing ratings. That's how they keep their time slots. But they're not pulling in good ratings for WWE stuff. And I don't know if any wrestling program is exactly pulling in what they would consider fantastic ratings when you're talking about what the peak of, television watching for wrestling was. So I don't want to get into all the history stuff. But what I will say is this: it was the most slapdash, just bad ideas, just piled on top of each other. Just we're all out of ideas. Let's just heap a bunch of shit on top of each other and see what happens. And that's exactly what they did. It was an absolute disaster. It was one of the stupidest things I'd ever seen in my life. And it broke me. And it broke me to the point where I'm like, I got to write about this because it kind of overwhelmed my senses about how terrible this thing was. And that's where Vince Got a Chill came from. It came from the idea that mentally I cannot take this anymore and I must write about it. And that's what happened. So let's fast forward to now. I'm sitting there and I'm watching all this, ballyhoo and all this backstage stuff about what's happening in the company, and is WWE trying to sell the company? I've heard rumblings that initially they're trying to package it all up for Fox to buy, um, and stuff like that. And I'm watching what they're doing with the one consistent WWE program that I've really enjoyed, which was NXT, and I've been watching it since about 2013, um, since its inception. and their presentation over there is different. It's more like an old school. It was more like old school wrestling show with some modern flares to it, but really focused on the athletic stuff, on building out storylines and things along that line, and really focusing on being entertaining. And I'm watching what's happened over the years. So, and before, because I don't have the list of the wrestlers in front of me and stuff like that, so please forgive me, but there's been pretty much a direct line from what's happening on NXT to the current roster of big name superstars. Almost every big name superstar went through NXT or the Florida Valley Wrestling. Some even OVW if they're that old, but um, you know, there's a direct line. And Florida Valley Wrestling, I mean, Florida Wrestling kind of became NXT more or less. I know that it's not exact, but that's what happened. And it kind of ran different. It felt different. It felt like a different product, to be quite honest with you. The pay-per-views even felt like different products. And in my mind, I'm sitting there like, this is really good. This is really entertaining. The pay-per-views are more entertaining. It's a superior product to the stuff that you see on Fridays and Monday nights from Vince and company. And the reason why was because it was run by Triple H. And they hired wrestling minds and put some of the great wrestling minds from previous generations in positions of power, where you had Dusty Rhodes giving promo classes and all kinds of other really kind of cool stuff. William Regal really being a mentor and stuff, and really playing up the concept of having wrestlers who are active but are also coaches. And so, you bring in Shawn Michaels, you bring in a lot of other people that really know the business or whatnot, for better or worse, and let them train the next generation of wrestlers. And like I said, NXT had a different feel to it. Well, let's flash forward till now. Triple H had some kind of heart episode, so he can't run the show anymore. And I start hearing rumblings about Vince and his crew insinuating themselves into the NXT programming. And now, before we get to that, there's been a couple of call ups to NXT. A couple of their major stars got called up to that main roster, and the reception was bad because they're giving really dumb wrestling gimmicks, like transcendingly dumb and set up to look stupid. And the fans of those people that followed them over from NXT were kind of turned off by it, turned off by the treatment. And um, I don't think the wrestlers are too thrilled about it either. But what happened is, long story short, they give them dumb gimmicks, and then people either want to quit or they get cut because they're not getting over with the crowd. But they had the perfect package coming up from NXT. All you had to do was just continue on. And it goes into the main topic of the point here. This is why Vince got to chill part 3. What they're doing to NXT, what they've done to it, where they've made it so that it's something I used to enjoy on Wednesday evenings, and it's turned into something that's just not really fun to watch. They got a couple of guys that are interesting, couple of guys and girls that are really super interesting on the card. A couple of young men and women that I'm really interested in seeing more of, but I'll watch them and skip the rest of the show. I'm gonna keep 100 because I don't really care about the other stuff that they got going on, because it looks too much like Raw and SmackDown, and Raw and SmackDown isn't enough to keep my attention. Especially after they broke up the Hurt Business. When they broke up Bobby Lashley's crew, I'm looking at what could have been the Black Four Horsemen, and they had the look, they had the crowd behind them, everything, and Vince just pulled the plug on it. That's kind of one of the things that did spawn the original Vince Gotta Chill. But that aside, watching NXT is painful, especially since it's a program that I really loved, and I'm watching it transform into another Vince McMahon production, and it's not good. You know, more super stereotypical roles for people of ethnic and racial groups, more really paint by the numbers characters, where they all have to have some kind of thing. You know, you can't be just You can't just come out and get over with your with your personality and be an engaging person. You have to be a character that does something. Like, here's the wrestling plumber. This person can't be interesting on their own. They can't be interesting in the way that Stone Cold was allowed to be interesting, or The Rock was allowed to be interesting, or Mankind was allowed to be interesting, or Mick Foley, whatever you want to call them. They were allowed to be interesting being themselves. They have to be the wrestling plumber, or he's the wrestling barber, or the most recent one is Tony D'Angelo, who's actually he's actually pretty dope, and he's pretty talented on the mic. He can get around in the ring, and they're like, we're gonna make him a wise guy, a mobster, a modern day Tony Soprano. Um, Even though that entire era where that would have been kind of in the pop culture realm has passed a long time ago, and the Sopranos went off. So anyway, they've taken something. Vince has taken this thing that it was really kind of interesting and really kind of a mix of modern programming combined with old school wrestling, and they just kind of crapped all over it. And they've made it a clone of what WWE's other programming is, and they've made it really kind of uninteresting. And I have a perspective on why. And so follow me on this one. When I was as I got older and started reading and listening to people behind the scenes and listening to other wrestlers who had gone through the WWE system, one thing that came to mind was the fact that one of the things that stands out, and that's always kind of stood out about WWE, is the refusal to acknowledge other wrestling programs. In their mind, if you're a fan of WWE, you don't watch anything else, which is patently untrue, because I watch everything. I watched all of it growing up. Whatever we could get, I watched. And most of the cast I grew up with were kind of the same way. In the Midwest, you got a mix of, what ended up being WCW, which is I forgot. TNA, NWA, and Crockett. That's what WCW used to be. That you got a mix of that, and then you got a mix of WWF, and you watch both of them. And on Monday nights, we'd be flipping back and forth between the channels. There wasn't any one that held us to it. We watched both because it was really dope. It was a kind of a cool time, and they have it in their mind that if you watch WWE, you ain't watching nothing else. And I'll be quite honest with you, with the access to information and internet and stuff, that it seems to be a fundamental misunderstanding of the audience and a misreading of the audience, because of the fact that a lot of wrestling fans are heavy into the internet. They have their favorite wrestlers, they track them across promotions, and that's how AEW fans get excited about Bryan Danielson becoming a free agent, or Wynton Bray Wyatt, whatever he's going to go by, and stuff like that. So most of these wrestling fans do watch all the different promotions, every promotion they can get their hands on. Hell, there is even though Ring of Honor ain't active no more, there is a Ring of Honor channel that plays nothing but old Ring of Honor matches. So I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding of the audience, a misreading of the audience, if you will. And I think that Vince and his enablers, one, I think that there's something cognitively going on with Vince. There's something up here that's not firing, that's not working the right way. It's off. And so that's one thing. Another thing is with the cognitive stuff, I don't know if Vince remembers what happens from one week to the next, because some of the storylines that they start out with, they never conclude, and the decisions are confusing. And then the latest segments with him and Austin Theory is, I think that he thinks that he's doing the Vince McMahon voice, the barking, commanding, loud voice, but he's just growling, and it's unintelligible. You can't really tell what's being said. But if there's one thing I think that has happened is, I think that he views NXT as external competition. I think that's why they gutted it. I think that's why they're gutting it right now and making it unrecognizable, and removing all the people that people who grew up, who watched NXT, came to love. I think that's why they're removing all of them from their positions and pretty much crapping all over their wrestlers when they bring them up. The way they did Keith Lee, Karrion Cross. Um, you know, listen, just look. I'm scared what happens when Tommaso Ciampa makes that move. Johnny Gargano's, we don't know where he's at. We don't know what the deal is. Tony Storm, she just fucking had it. She just, I'm done. And so you look at the names that have filtered through they've matriculated through the NXT system and made it to the main roster, and it's a who's who of talent that's in other companies now. Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly, Bobby Fish. Um, you see these names go, and they go on to other companies to do other things, and their fans kind of follow them. And so I'm thinking that Vince McMahon saw NXT as an external competition and didn't quite see NXT as he doesn't see their audience as WWE fans. He sees them as fans that can be converted to the WWE product, not understanding that NXT fans followed from the NXT program. They followed the character, the wrestlers they was following. They followed them over to the other program and to see what Vince did with them. And Vince crapped the bed with them, and it was uninteresting. And again, it goes back to the reductive kind of stereotypical way and demeaning way that Vince has people out there. If if you're from India, you have Indian ancestry, you're going to be a villain. If you're black, unless you have a big enough personality to get over by yourself, they're going to make you some kind of street criminal or thug or whatever. They're going to take what you have and turn you up to 11. I seen what they did with Xia Li, where like, oh, she's the first Chinese wrestler in WWE, and they made her some kind of Shang-Chi analog. I don't know why. Don't know why. She was good as she was presented, and instead of focusing on who she was in real life, they made up a comic book character for her to play on television. Like, we're not all sitting there watching it knowing that comic book characters don't exist in real life. And I'm a black nerd telling you this. It is one of the oddest things. And so I don't think that Vince really saw NXT fans as WWE fans. And it's a misread of the audience, because what's happening is, and this is what's happening with me, I don't want to watch. And the only reason I watched the program, because I was hoping to start doing segments about wrestling and stuff, because it's something I did enjoy, but it's really hard to watch WWE's products because you know that your favorite wrestlers are going to get crapped on, and you're going to see a bunch of idiocy. And I'm not just talking about the level of goofy stuff that comes along in regular wrestling. I'm talking about powerful, stupid idiocy where it makes it hard, it makes it embarrassing to watch in front of other people. My kids will watch, and they'll get invested in a match or two, but then something so stupid will happen. They're like, what is this? Why are they doing this? And it's hard to explain to a 10 and 11-year-old, well, the writers are bad, and it's really not the performer's fault. They're being forced to say this crap. So Vince needs to be restrained somehow, some way, some form, because he's destroying his own product. And if the plan is to sell WWE, it feels like he's devaluing the product. I know that they're budget cuts and they're offloading all these contracts that they don't want to honor, but at some point you have to worry about, am I a bleeding audience to other programming? Because I wasn't a big AEW fan when it started, but they got me with some of the presentation because these dudes are allowed to do the some of the wrestlers I followed in WWE, they're allowed to actually do what they want to do, and it's actually pretty good. And it looks like a presentation that I could get behind. It's entertaining. I'm tuning in for the athletics, and to laugh every once in a while and stuff like that. And it's hard to even smile with some of the shit that WWE puts on television. It's really, really bad. It's insipid. It's like watching somebody who's been out of touch with mainstream society for the last 40 years try to write a show about pop culture. That's all I got about the events. Gotta chill. I'm gonna circle back around to it. There's some stuff I need to do to the website to update that. Part two. So, misadventures in my kids' interest. So, my son expressed interest and he wants to be a streamer and a gamer. So we went out and got the computer. Went out and got his gaming rig, which is just one of those cheap gaming laptops where you can download some stuff off Steam and have a good old time. And then he also got the interest because he was playing with one of his cousins, and his cousin had Fruity Loops, FL Studio, where you can make beats. And so we got that. My daughter's interests have been more art related, drawing and stuff. And so I'm online, right? And she wanted a digital tablet, um, one that she could draw on, that she could actually see, you know. And they sell them standalone. It's not exactly standalone. You got to plug it into a computer or some kind of other tablet or something, and it gives you a big screen to work on. So I bought one. Now I saw one online. I'm like, yo, I can get this for her. She's gonna love it. Um, and the price is amazing on it. It's one of the best price things. And we order the thing, gets to the house, and I had to carry this thing in from the porch. This thing is heavy. This thing is heavier than my TV. So Christmas comes around, everybody opens the gifts. We open this thing. This thing is bigger than TV. And I was an idiot because it was a canvas 22, and I didn't think the 22 meant it's 22 inches across, but it is. And so that's been the thing that has been kind of aside from fighting the Omarion. Um, that's been the thing that's been kind of consuming my time, is trying to get the kids set up on their different devices. My son's computer is pretty cut and straightforward. Um, Put $100 in a Steam account and said, knock yourself out, get what you want, make sure that you don't overdo it, and this is your budget. And so I kind of let him go. My daughter, on the other hand, it's been a battle to get things set up because I bought this thing thinking I was getting a fantastic deal, not realizing that I didn't have any old computer in the house that was powerful enough to do what this thing needed to do. So I had to buy another computer for her to run this thing off of. And in hindsight, I'm like, dang, we way overdid it and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I'm realizing that I'm getting to the point where we will pay whatever costs to engage our kids' interest as long as it's not outlandish. And I feel like there's a lot of parents out there right now who are struggling because their kids are interested in things that they don't, that the parents don't see as valuable or a good use of their time. And what I say to that is encourage them, because you never know in this new world, this new digital world, you never know exactly which one of your kids' interests can actually blossom into something that they can do for the rest of their lives and have a fulfilling and joyous life with. And even if they don't go professional in the things that they're interested in, they have hobbies. And I realize that a lot of people I grew up with didn't grow up with hobbies, and they have a very difficult time they have a difficult time sitting still and doing things in their free time because they didn't have hobbies. They weren't allowed to have hobbies growing up. You know, I know that there's a huge push to get kids in athletics and things like that, but sometimes the athletic stuff is just so that the kid can stay in shape, but that's not what their entire free time needs to be consumed with. They need to be allowed to have interests that that run the gamut of things, because that's how you raise them into being well-rounded adults who have other interests. My daughter, she may not turn art into a full-time career, but she has something that relaxes her. And that's a huge thing, because there's a lot of people my age who do not. They don't have things that they don't have interests or things they can dive into that interest them. And that's a pretty sad place to be, where when you're not working, you're not playing video games, you're not drinking, you don't know what else to do with yourself. because you were not allowed to pursue interests and have hobbies and have things that weren't related to work or school or athletics. You don't have any of those. And so you're just kind of adrift in your free time, and it makes your free time miserable. It makes your free time actually stressful when you don't have something to do. And so we encourage our kids' interests. You know, the gaming thing may not be forever for my son, but he wants to learn how to run a camera, and he wants to learn how to edit video, and he wants to learn how to make beats and make music and stuff. Those are things that could actually turn into career paths for him. He also wants to learn how to cook. We're teaching him. There are lots of things that your kids pick up and may be interested in that all they are looking for is your support. And there's nothing wrong with allowing them access to those things. Not every activity your kid picks up has to manifest into some kind of job or career or whatever when they get older. And it doesn't have to have some kind of monetary value where it brings money in. If it adds value to their lives, then sometimes that's good enough. And it goes into the conversation about parents who want to micromanage their kids' academic career and cherry pick what college they go to and what major they have and all this other stuff. I'm here to tell you right now. Um, I really wish that I was allowed to really pursue my interests more than I was more pressed into, you need to get a degree that makes money, because me getting the degree that makes money led to me dropping out of college. The thing I was interested in was also at college, and I wasn't pushed towards that. I was pushed away from it. And I listened to the adults that I thought knew better in my life, and I'm stuck with uh, working in a degree that I did not love. And I was a DJ in college, and that was the way it was framed and the way it was viewed by the older people in my world was me being a DJ wasn't a lucrative thing. Working in radio wasn't lucrative. It wasn't a potential career, which I know is a lie now. It wasn't true then, but I'm not even saying that the adults in my world were being malicious with that. What I'm saying is they were in their best. They were trying to do what they thought was in my best interest, which was steering me away from a career that they didn't see any value in, a pastime. It's something they saw as a pastime, and they didn't think I could make any real money in it. And they steered me towards what everybody thought my family I was going to do, which would be some kind of scientist or engineer, or one of the one of those professions. And that's not me. I'm more a creator than anything else. So encourage your kids, encourage what they do in their pastime, encourage them to pick up things and try them, and if they don't like them, to move on. Encourage them to experiment with hobbies, even if they're not good at them. Encourage them to experiment with it, you know because you never know that the thing that the kid could latch onto that ends up being a lifetime thing that they can always turn to, that gives them some sense of relief. And in this world, having an activity that gives you relief, that doesn't involve labor, doesn't involve working for somebody else, is a gift. It's a blessing to actually have a hobby. It really is. Even if the hobby is just I read and I write a little bit. That's a dope hobby. That's what I got, y'all. I didn't get a whole lot of people tuning in. Hopefully, you guys watched the replay. I'm going to be chopping this up in the video segments, and that's what I got. I'm probably be doing some more Vince Gotta Chill stuff. I'm getting more into planned content, so the next couple of videos are going to be going back into character issues. That's why I'm saying I got to do some stuff on my website, because I let a couple of things lapse with the website, and so I got to go in there and save that, make sure that I didn't lose any old content that I had. But that's all I got. I appreciate y'all tuning in. I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.